Path of Exile 2 has a huge opportunity to do something very special, because it's in a very unique situation, but a tricky one as well. It has the chance to bring in a massive new audience to a game that, from what I know and the little I've played, is fantastic, but it needs to play its cards right. Let's talk about that. Hi, I'm Mug Thief. I play too many games and I think too much about them. It's very difficult to get me excited for new video games at this point, but I'm excited for Path of Exile 2 and also a little worried. So I know I'm not alone in being intrigued by many different games and wanting to play them, but feeling overwhelmed due to them being long-running franchises or live service games, or they're in genres that have gotten very complex and intimidating. I recently even talked about this with a video on fighting games, which I think suffer from this as well. Path of Exile is one of those games. I know I'd love it because I enjoy Diablo, both the older ones and to some degree also Diablo 4, even though that's gone the way that it's gone. And I also recently loved Lost Ark, a game that has many problems, but that provided me with gameplay that I highly enjoyed at times. And I've heard over and over again, as I'm sure many of you have, that Path of Exile is exactly the type of game I'd love. But it just feels intimidating. Even when taking the plunge and jumping into the game, it feels like I'm so many years behind in knowledge to even begin, and that makes it very difficult to keep going through it, with a constant feeling of being a noob that doesn't understand if I'm doing things wrong. Even if that isn't the case, or if it doesn't matter, this is a very normal feeling. The truth very well could be that you can go through the game, enjoy it, use a couple of external resources, and get caught up without much difficulty at all. But even if that's true, some of us can't shake that feeling of diving into an ocean that's scarily deep, and we just refuse to do so. But a new game, like in the case of Path of Exile 2, is a perfect opportunity for people like me to hop on with a ton of other people, and even in the worst case of feeling lost, I can do so with a community of people that is equally lost. And I think this is one of the most important aspects of PoE 2, and what could make it reach success well beyond what we might expect. ARPGs of this kind have gotten a lot of attention and popularity over these last years, including things like Lost Ark and Diablo 4, as well as things like Lost Epoch picking up traction. With more eyes on the genre, more people dipping their toes into it and discovering it, and more people discovering different things that they'd like in that space, a lot of people agreeing that whatever Diablo 4 is doing, it's not that. That means all Path of Exile 2 needs to do is reach all of those players and offer a well-designed experience for people hopping into this sort of game for the first time. One of the reasons I feel confident that PoE 2 will be exceptional is because hearing the developers speak and the reactions that people who professionally play these games for a living have shows that this is a game being made by people who are absolutely thrilled to be making this game. It's become a bit of a rarity in big games these days that even top management is so passionate about the game they're making, but this can be a double-edged sword. When you love the game you're making and you're on the path of making it, especially with a previous game and 10 years of legacy behind it, I hope that Grinding Gear Games don't forget that this is a game where hundreds of thousands of people that have never really played PoE 1 or gotten too deep into other ARPGs of this style will be playing it. And these new players need a certain amount of hand-holding, me included. We don't want to be treated like babies and have control taken away from us every 3 seconds, but we do want clear guides that teach us what's important in the game in order to keep enjoying it to its fullest all the way through. And while people like me and many watching this video right now, yes, I'm talking to you, we're very capable of checking out online guides and watching YouTube videos and checking out forum discussions, and with a brand new game coming out, there's going to be plenty of resources available for us to dig into. There's a lot of other people that just aren't like that, and they won't search for those resources, and they could get lost and miss out on an experience they would love. So that's on one hand. I really hope they're looking into accessibility and making sure that it's a game that's approachable to new players that might have a perception of the franchise of it being very intimidating. I mean, look at this skill tree. Seriously. But on the other side, when it comes to people like me, like us, those willing to do those things, I think it's pointing towards being an experience that we shouldn't miss out on. It genuinely looks like a game that understands the systems that it needs to nail, but graphically, stylistically, and in some of its gameplay, leans farther from Diablo than PoE 1 did. It allows for WASD movement, it has a lot of weight behind its actions, it seems to be thought out to be very satisfying to play. And in some ways, looking at the abilities and the impact they have, they remind me of the Stockholm Syndrome that was Lost Ark, but this time hopefully in a game that's actually good. Path of Exile 2 will undoubtedly be the talk of the town for a while, and knowing how the devs operate, it will continue to exist for a very long time. But this upcoming launch is crucial in welcoming so many different players into what could be a dream game for many, myself included. It's not an easy thing to manage, especially coming from that huge game that has a very knowledgeable player base, but accounting for both veterans that need no hand-holding at all, and people with some experience in the genre, and those that are completely new, that's not easy to do. But I think that if they pull it off, along with the tons of forums, comments, and content creators that are going to bring attention to the game, PoE 2 could be massive, way beyond what we expect. It's just one of those right time and right place things where I think the stars are aligned for interest in the game to be very high. So many people played and then lost interest in Lost Ark, and kind of the same thing with Diablo 4. So all they really need to do is be better than those, and it's hard to imagine the game being anything but a hit. And you also have to add on that it's coming to consoles, which is a very big market, and it's one of the reasons that makes me hopeful they're keeping in mind all of that accessibility, since console players playing on controllers is a big deal, and a lot of people like playing Diablo 4 with a controller, so having access to that in PoE 2 could be a huge boon for it, especially when it comes to console games, where here on YouTube we talk a lot about Steam player numbers, but we forget to talk about how massive the console space is when it comes to these genres. When you put all of that together with a free-to-play model that, if we're looking at PoE 1, seems to be very well accepted by its players, and there is no pay to win, I think it's guaranteed that the initial reception will be very, very big. The question will then be, can it hold people's interest and guide them towards that endgame? It also does mean in the end that if the game isn't what we expected and I turn up to be wrong with a bunch of egg on my face, well, at least it didn't cost us any money. So I, for one, am excited to jump on this train as it leaves the station, which is precisely what this opportunity presents. And if you've ever had an interest in these sorts of games, I recommend you at least keep your eye on PoE 2, so we can all either be too lost or fall in love with the game together. As usual, I hope this video was entertaining and made you think a bit, but if you want more stuff like this, including many of my very long video essays and a lot of other think pieces, subscribe and you get a lot of that completely for free. Just like Path of Exile 2, look at that. And as always, I'll see you very soon.